Welcome to For the Common Good with Juanita, a show where we inform, inspire, and empower our communities, our businesses, and people just like you. I'm excited about the show today. Think about this. From hustler to entertainer to CEO. You talk about defeating the odds. Well, that's what we're talking about today. Our guest is Joseph Lee, and he is CEO of JLGOV LLC and has decades of experience in information technology and cybersecurity. His journey to the top is one that you do not want to miss. Help me welcome to the show. Welcome, Joseph. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Juanita. I'm glad to be here. First and foremost, again, thank you. Thank the Common Good for having me here today on this episode. So, appreciate it.
You are so welcome. From hustler to entertainer to CEO. You talk about defeating the odds. A young kid growing up in the inner city in the South to running a very successful business as CEO.
Yes.
Tell us about that journey.
Wow, I could probably talk for hours about that, So it really, when you look at coming from the South and born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, it was a lot. It was a struggle. It was the days of drugs, gangs, some say a lot of corruption, police force, and I was an 80s and 90s baby, right? So that was prime time where it was at its highest. And you look at New Orleans compared to Cabrini Green, looking at Berry Farms in DC, there was no worry about where you wanted to be or where you were going to end up. I remember the days of walking out and walking to school 2 to 3 miles when I got into high school. So a couple times you saw police episodes with the tape, and you saw dead bodies. So that itself is a psychological struggle for kids coming up back then. But also knowing that our project, where we grew up at, the Desired Project, was actually built on top of a city dump. So, the struggle never ended. As they have today, where there are support groups, we didn't have the support groups available to us back then. You're talking about a household of 4 adults, my mother, my grandfather, my grandmother, my uncle, and then 3 youth, right? All in a 3-bedroom apartment complex. And that was in the Desired Project. So it wasn't no crystal stair when I was growing up. So I had to think bigger and think better. By the time I reached 14, 15 years old, I pretty much was kind of a breadwinner in my household. My mother had to stop working. She had to help support my grandfather. My uncle was still there working. My aunt had moved out at the time, but still, we still had a house full coming up in the project. So talking about trying to live your dream, I didn't have a father growing up. I had the streets per se. I had the hustlers back then to get the little gifts for being the football star. So, a lot of praise. And I will have to say, I could be here trying to be very polished and articulate about some of the things that I share, but I figure, why not tell the real story and a true story? And so a lot of people have stories.
Yeah.
And let's not get that misconstrued. So we all have stories. Everyone has a different story. And my story just the same, and probably even a little different to others. Coming up and knowing that a coach believed in you, knowing that the dealers on the street believed in you to say that you can do better, I wanted better for myself. And I realized that when an uncle came down for a visit with his wife at the time, Roosevelt Lee, bless his soul, he was the closest thing to a father that I could have. That gave me hope that I could get out. And when I found out that actually my mom sent for him to come get me out of there. And let there, be a real truth told here. I was part of a group of guys, and it was hard times, and we had to do what we had to do to live by the city.
Survival.
Yeah,
That's what it's
it was
about.
survival of the fittest. So I graduated. I still was able to graduate. At that time, we had a class of about 150 students, and I was 56. I'll never forget that. So life took off and it began. But those first 2 years after high school was really rough. Working at McDonald's, trying to find other jobs, hustler, as you would say, by the streets. But I was a go-getter.
Yeah.
And when people hear the term hustler, they really think take a negative tone to that, right? So I was a hustler with an enterprising mind to do better and to get out of an environment and put myself into a better environment. And that's what I did when I moved to DC in 91. I moved up to DC, the Maryland area, with my family, and life began. Life began for me. I got into Pizza Hut. I got into Heckinger's. I was working 80, 90 hours a week. And then on from there, I got into a law firm, worked my way up through the mailroom, onto the case clerk level, up to the research assistant level. And life just started to happen. But there were still some shortcomings along the way, right? As a youth, I was having some problems in identity, right? And still wanted to play by the streets, but was a professional by heart and career. So life happened. And I did have the support of some of my family members also. So I can't leave them out.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, what an amazing story. Talk about humble beginnings. It's just fascinating. During that time, you probably couldn't imagine yourself where you are now, or maybe you could.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
But you took the good out of every situation and every encounter you had. You learned something,
Yep.
and you took those positive things out of it to launch you to the next level.
Yes.
And you continued to climb from there.
Yeah.
I mean, if this doesn't inspire anyone out there who really are wanting to live a dream and thinking that they can't, or the fear of not being able to achieve, all they have to do is listen to your story, because this is a story.
Yeah, and it really talks about three different things in my life that were pillars: dedication, determination, and the will to have passion. And that's what kept me going and driving. I saw my dark past, and I said to myself, that's how clear I want to see my future going forward, right? So it's trying to reach that where most people see things right up front of them, like wearing bifocals. I see things long range of where I would love to be with my life. And so those struggles, they made me who I am today. They really did. And it took a lot of determination. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of sacrifice, relationships, taking a decrease in jobs. In 2009, I moved on to starting my own property management company. At the economic downturn, right? That was 2009. That was the biggest depression, right? And I let that business sit for a long time, and I did my homework too, Juanita. I know you've been in the Department of Human Services, so Health and Human Services, so the struggles of the inner city, of how that can affect people at that time of a crisis. So I just kept pushing, and I always say, like Einstein, you have to try, and try again. Failure is not an option. So that's what I've done in my life.
I love it. Failure is not an option. We've been talking to Joseph Lee, who's the CEO of JLGOV LLC. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to For the Common Good with Juanita. Today, we're talking to Joseph Lee, who's CEO of JLGOV LLC. And I wanted to ask you something, Joseph, in reference to the business. I can imagine the challenges that you face in trying to grow this business and the competition out there. Can you talk a little bit about your path in establishing this business and where you are now and what some of your challenges may have been?
Yeah, sure. So, with anyone that wants to be a contractor, and specifically a government contractor, there are a lot of hurdles.
Yeah.
There it is not for the weary at heart
Mm-hmm.
by far. And so, with that, I would say when I got started in 2013, I had just got laid off from a major antivirus company that I was working for. And so, I moved forward. And what actually got me started in this arena was a government contracting attorney that reached out to me because of what I was doing in the community and working alongside of his wife through the Department of Human Services, where I was bringing Christmas to these families every year. So he actually reached out to me and we had lunch and said, why don't you do what you have a passion for? It seems like you've got about 20 years in the IT and cyber field. Why don't we do that? So it was an easy conversion from my prior company that I started up as a property management company, converted that over. He in turn turned around and said, hey, you're going to need an office front. I've got some colleagues. We're going to give you an office front. I said, nobody gives you anything. I said, that doesn't happen. And I said, I'm from a city where I don't believe that you get anything for free. So really, what would this look like for me to consider? I said, Joe, what my wife has told me about what you've done in the community, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to lay it all out, all transparency. I'm going to get you an unofficial mentor. We got an office space that I think would be good for you. We'll take you by to see it. And when you do see the lease agreement, you won't believe it, but it'll be real. And from that, I pretty much paid $20 a month for an office space. 20 bucks a month.
Blessing.
So from there, the hurdle became developing relationships, pursuing opportunities in the different portals of where opportunities can be placed, having the right people once you really get it moving, right? So finding the loyal people to work with you. There are many consultants out there where I did not see the return on investment, whether it was sales or whether it was business development or whether it was proposal writing, etc. I in turn had to beat the ground and keep going as much as possible. And I started to win opportunity in 3 to 6, 12, 9 months as opposed to 12 months. The other hurdle is trying to get to the people who make the decisions, the decision makers or the stakeholders, to even have a 30-minute conversation. There are many gatekeepers when you look at the government contracting side of the world. So that's a real big hurdle. The other hurdle for small businesses, I think, is having the ability to also run the business, find opportunity, but also keep the business registered and active. That's a whole nother process in itself, to be registered, to keep your licenses in place, to keep your small business certifications intact and in place. Then comes the expense of which, had I known, which I would have probably done differently, was had an additional income for marketing and also operationally to make sure I get the company going where it needed to go.
Wow.
So those are just some of the major hurdles I see coming in the door. And then after that, it's sustainment.
Well, I think for a lot of businesses that start, and it's great that you recognize that, because many times, people focus on their craft, whether it's the technology or whether it's providing the healthcare, and then there's all of these other systems, the administrative systems that you have to be successful at too, because then one day, while you're doing your work, the business is kind of, going in a different direction because you don't have that support system. So you have a business manager that helps you and keep all of those things intact.
Yes, absolutely. My business manager has been with me nearly four years now, and she's a lovely lady. She decided to come out of retirement to work with me full time. She started out part time for the first year and a half, and then she said, hey, I see your dream, I see your vision. I want to come on full time if you can afford to bring me on full time. Sure enough, I won some opportunity, and that started our relationship. I had other people engaged throughout the business over the last 7 years now. But when I first got started, in the first 2 years, I got my small business certifications. I got SWAM. I did my own GSA schedule. I also did my own 8A application process. And back then, it was a lot stringent.
Oh, yeah. And people would charge you so much, thousands of dollars.
So I did it myself, burning the midnight oil to do that at night and to try to run the business during the day. But now, as I look forward and as things have happened, when you reach 5 years, you get that little tear in your eye, right? I've done it. I've overcome the small business hurdle. Well, now I look at innovation and where we need to go. So I recently brought in Robert Pryor. He is my new executive director and business development manager. He will help expand the relationships. He will help expand into new markets when you look at digital transformation, healthcare IT, cybersecurity, and also innovation and research. And then on top of that, he will also add to expanding our strategic goals to enhance and enrich the partnerships with larger companies so that we can see how we can bring value to them as a small business partner. And lastly, he's a 3-time military commander. So he held relationships and positions with large companies like CACI and Lockheed Martin. So I think I've brought in a very experienced guy that can leverage his relationships and talents to help me expand this company to the next level.
But timing is everything, because you're ready for that now. With where you are, you're ready to go to that next level.
Yes.
So that's really exciting. I want to talk a little bit more about the services that you're providing to small, mid-size, and also large businesses. You talked about cybersecurity and technology. I can imagine now in the environment that we live in, cybersecurity is crucial. Can you talk a little bit more about the services?
Yes, absolutely. So we do provide IT and cybersecurity services and solutions, and we focus on a lot of small, mid-market, and large enterprise as well. We have a cloud service that we provide to provide you remote management and monitoring of your IT systems. That means your desktops, your laptops, and even your cell phones. But also we can provide you cloud capabilities to drive efficiency in your business with storage solutions that's encrypted and secure, and even hosted PBX phones. So where it may look like you're in the office and where we are today in a remote world, you can bring that phone home and connect it to your internet service, and now you're doing business right from your home off of that phone. And then also when you look at what every business needs, they need to purchase hardware and software. So we do focus on the reseller side of the house. We are paired with some of the big companies and distributors and manufacturers like an HP or Microsoft and all of those type folks. And then predominantly, and where our primary focus is, it's professional services at the end of the day when we go after contracts in the commercial space and at the government level. So we go after services, network security, information technology, video telecommunications.
Wow.
Yes.
Seeing a lot of changes though in the technology environment, just keeping pace with everything. And I can imagine that's really difficult for small businesses.
Yes.
So you're helping them to be able to do that.
Yes, we're really in a digital transformation model right now. And one thing that we're doing on a great opportunity that we secured just a couple months ago with the Navy, we're promoting digital transformation. So that's helping transition and re-engineer their business processes and how they do things. So just take how you take an onboarding process to bring someone into your organization. That can take weeks at a time depending on your process. If we can do that and automate that whole process and make that a whole lot better for you, and you also have a way of collaborating with all the different teams or groups that needs to touch that employee life cycle, imagine initiating that process all at once. So that's what we're doing right now.
Fascinating.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome to For the Common Good with Juanita. And we're back from break, and we've been talking to Joseph Lee, the CEO of JLGOV LLC, and we're excited to have him back on the show. And he's joined by his business manager of JLGOV LLC,
Darlene Summon.
Darlene Summon. And look else who's here. His little girl, Carson, is her name. Hi there.
Say hello. Say hello.
Oh, wow. She's holding on for dear life. A little shy there.
True daddy's girl.
True daddy's girl. Oh, that is really wonderful. So talk a little bit, because I know you do a lot of work in the community.
Right.
Very involved in the community. And I think that's something that's really important for business owners is not forgetting the community that supports you.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about your community work. What are you doing in the community?
Sure, yes. So I've always said that doing business with JLGOV is doing business in the community. So when I first moved here, I walked into the Department of Human Services and I told them I wanted to support 2 families for Christmas. And I gave them $1,000 each, right? And so from there, it just took on a life of its own where every year for Christmas time in my household, I would have these gifts after going out on a major shopping spree and working in collaboration with the Department of Human Services Holiday Project. And so in Virginia Beach. And so with that, just came a yearly thing. It finally just expanded to me picking up 5 volunteers, 7 volunteers, and then it went from my house after about 5 years to a venue, and then from one venue to the next venue. And 2017 was my flagship year of giving this event. But of course, 2017 was the year that Carson was born in June. So life took on at that point. So, but I would generally go out on a major shopping spree, and we would support anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 families per year. And that's understanding the family's need. That's spending a little time with them to understand what they're dealing with and their hardships, whether it was indisposition, medically ill people, homeless vets, people elderly from the homes, and then also just serious hardships that some families were going through from a storm, or whether they were kicked out of their homes, or from some type of disaster or fires and things of that nature.
So you're really passionate about giving back.
Yes.
Certainly commend you for that.
Yes.
Now I'm noticing the shirts, and I have one right here as well.
Yes.
Love this. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Wow, Team JLGOV. Now I noticed that your shirt says Girl Dad CEO.
That's right.
And what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so I am the girl dad, so I'm a hands-on father, right? So I do her hair, I do her toes. I have been teaching her how to cook since she was 1 year old. She helps do the chores, dishes, laundry, sweeping. And she's actually on my marketing material from when she was 3 months, and she sat in my lap and she put her hand on her cheek and was just staring at the computer of a CISSP, which is a major certification in cybersecurity. So she is on my training marketing material as well.
Something tells me she's going to be a CEO one day, and you might be working for her.
Hey, I might
right, Carson?
I'm already prepping her. So she comes to the office now and she states, hey, my desk. She runs into the office with Miss Silman, and she goes right to her chair and her desk, and she'll sit there and she looks for a computer. And there she is. She helps me do some filing too.
Absolutely amazing. Train them up. Teach them young. That's
it kind of reads in the Bible.
Yes.
Teach them what you were not taught for where you want them to go. And so that's what I preference that with when I work with her every day. Being a single dad and CEO of a company is really hard and trying. I take nothing away from mothers, right? At the end of it, when they were raising kids also, and still do today. I've done my research, and even with mothers today, a lot of mothers and wives are going back to the corporate world to even support helping their husbands. It is an ever-changing task when it comes to raising a child, of what I've learned over the last 3.5 years.
Wow. Well, I've heard that you want to do something right now.
Of course, and why not? So it's been almost 4 years, and while I have brought you some gifts, I also have brought another gift to the stage to give to Miss Silman. 4 years.
We set you up, didn't we?
So 4 years that she has been with me with the company come June, and I wanted to show my appreciation that I don't ever forget my employees. You have been with me through the ups and the downs, and you came out of retirement to support JLGOV. Yeah, where you're looking to say, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore, but I'm glad that you saw something in me to come on to JLGOV. Why don't you hand this to Miss Silman? Give this to Miss Silman. You want to give it to her? Say, here you go.
Thank you, Carson.
All right. And she says, read it.
Okay, let's see. It says, with our greatest appreciation, we hereby present Darlene Silman for your unwavering support and unrelenting guidance that help in leading our path to success. You're being honored with much appreciation and gratitude. Thank you. And he really surprised me.
Yes, she had no idea today about this at all, and I had to make sure that I do this on my credit card at the last minute, because again, she monitors my books for me.
You know, how clever. You were able to,
Yeah.
to do all of that without
Yes.
her knowing.
Yes.
Right,
Oh, wow.
absolutely. You gonna hold that for her?
Well, he
Okay,
said
great.
several times that he wanted to make sure that he presented you with this gift. So obviously that means so much to him, your work that you've done. So we applaud you for that.
I thank him for welcoming me into the JLGOV family.
It is a family at that.
Yeah,
is a
it is a family, and everything that I've said about the business is not just about biological family model, but it's really looking at the employees and building that family-oriented culture and environment. So Ms. Silman here has been with me since Carson has been born, and before, and or all of the above. So she's seen the ups and downs. She's been there for each one of her birthdays as well. So truly want to build that family model.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for your dedication and all that your success. And we just applaud you and thank you for taking the time to be on the show today. And thank you for all what you do for the company. We really appreciate you, and you certainly for the community. This is wonderful for our communities to have successful businesses, and also the way you give back to the community.
Yeah, I appreciate
So
that.
thank you again, and thank you for being on the show, and to our viewers, thank you for tuning in to For the Common Good with Juanita.